on the Back to the Future episode, right, that Eric Stoltz was cast as original Marty McFly, I couldn't believe it. Like in my head, all I'd seen was Lieutenant Dan, right? So I'm like, wait, that's Eric Stoltz, right?
No, that's not. That's Gary Sinise.
Gary Sinise. No,
what are
there
you
we go again.
No, it's actually, I think it is Lou Diamond Phillips.
Remember when we first met John McClane? Argyle picked him up from the plane and took him down the Nakatomi Tower at the Christmas party. And the terrorists were overzealous, but it was sweet when they killed Ellis. And with a little help from Alan, John McClane kicked ass.
Welcome back to Shat the Movies, the podcast where we answer the question, were the movies we loved when we were growing up really that good? Have you ever caught yourself thinking, why don't they make movies like they used to? Can you still remember spending your Friday night searching for the perfect movie rental at Blockbuster Video? Do you know what Blockbuster Video is? If you answered yes, then this is the podcast for you. I am one of your hosts, Gene Lyons, and alongside me is my co-host, Big D, Dick Ebert.
Good evening.
And each week, we take a look back in time, decide if our favorite films still hold up. The movies we cover are chosen by you, the listeners, who generously commission the films you love. If you like to see all the movies we have covered, will cover, want to choose one for yourself, please visit chatpod.com and have a look. At the end of each podcast, we'll provide you, the audience, with the number of wipes each movie would take to get off your respective butts. So thank you so much for listening. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and share with a friend. It's how we help the podcast grow. Additionally, subscribe to our sister podcast, Shat on TV. We review TV series such as Westworld, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, True Detective, Lovecraft Country, and Watchmen. Find all that information and past episodes at shatpod.com/TV. And finally, if you like to hang out with us live, follow and subscribe to our Twitch channel, shatpod.com/Twitch, and our YouTube channel where we play video games, host watch parties, and edit this podcast live. All that being said, Big D, what movie are you reviewing tonight?
Gene, it's been a long time since we've been back to our core set of films. I think the second episode that we recorded, Roger and I, was Weird Science. And early on, I remember the joke was made, we should change our name to the John Hughes podcast, because it seemed like every week was another Hughes classic. And then for a long spell, I can't remember how long it's been since we've been back. So tonight will be great. We're going back to a place very familiar, which is high school. It's coming of age. We're going to have some romantic problems as usual. We're going to get back in the shower, Gene, but it's going to be very different this time. And we're going back to the well, to a warm, safe place that will bring us back to the 80s and the 90s and the wonderful world of John Hughes for Simon H., who was kind enough to commission one of the few films in his filmography that we have missed. And it is the 1987 teen romantic drama, Some Kind of Wonderful. And he was nice enough to leave us a voicemail so we can all hear why this film means so much to him and why it's worthy of being reviewed on Shat.
Hello, Team Shat. It's Simon from Blighty here with my second commission. It is the 1987 romantic drama Some Kind of Wonderful, which was written by John Hughes, directed by Howard Deutsch, starred Eric Stoltz, Mary Stuart Masterson, Laird Thompson, and also featured an amazing scene-stealing performance by an incredibly young Elias Koteas as Duncan the Skinhead. This was the last film in the John Hughes canon of romantic high school dramas, and by all accounts, it was the least successful of all of them. It had quite a poor US theatrical release, and I think in most markets around the world, it probably went straight to video. I definitely saw it in late 1987 on VHS, and even though I'd seen Ferris Bueller and Breakfast Club, I really loved this film and just thought it was so much better than all of his other work. A legend has it that John Hughes and Howard Deutsch worked together on Pretty in Pink, but they had to change the film and change the ending after a poor test screening in the US. And the movie that they released, they were never happy with. And Some Kind of Wonderful was almost a revision version of Pretty in Pink with the ending that they wanted. I love this film, and I watch it every couple of years. I introduced it to my two daughters when they were old enough to watch it, and they really loved it, and they still quote the dialogue on a regular basis. I think films like 16 Candles and Pretty in Pink haven't really aged that well. However, Some Kind of Wonderful has, and it's still a great film to watch on a Friday night. There isn't a single ingredient that makes the film great. It's just loaded with strong characters, really cool dialogue, a timeless premise, and a fantastic soundtrack. The concept of a really uncool guy scoring a date with the coolest girl in school and then upsetting the whole tribal ecosystem of the conventional 1980s American high school is such a joy to watch. And then there's that wonderful friendship between the super cool Watt played by Mary Stuart Masterson, and the really nerdy Keith, played by Eric Stoltz, which was so fresh for its time and is still lovely to watch. Anyway, I think this film's an easy 1.5 wipe, but let's see what you think. Give it your best, Team Shat. Cheers from Blighty. Thanks a lot.
Now, Simon, normally when we get a voicemail in for a commission, I will listen to it just to see where the commissioner is coming from and also to file it correctly within our notes and kind of set up the episode around it. This time, I'm so glad that I didn't listen to your voicemail prior to watching the film, because it's shocking how on the same page we are about this movie. It's like you read my notes word for word. So I think you'll be very pleased with at least my review of the film. Not so sure about Big D.
Simon's already reached a little spot in my heart. I hope I'm correct. Take me back to dear old Blighty. Put me on the train to London town. Take me anywhere. Drop me anywhere. Liverpool or Leeds or Birmingham, because I don't care. I hope that's the correct place.
That is dead. Indeed.
Yes.
Beautiful.
I've never known anyone from Blighty. So, Simon, thank you for completing the circle in my love of everything British and London and the Smiths. So thank you. You're in my heart right now.
For those of you that don't know, on any episode that Big D sings, the downloads just skyrocket. That was a catnip for listeners.
That was my Morrissey. I don't do a good Morrissey. I apologize.
Well, Some Kind of Wonderful is a 1987 teen romantic drama in which blue-collar teen Keith goes out with the popular Amanda, a girl he's always dreamed of dating. Her ex-boyfriend plots revenge on him, while Keith's tomboy best friend Watts realizes she has feelings for Keith. So, Big D, earlier you mentioned the John Hughes catalog, and doing an 80s and 90s podcast, I thought I had seen everything he had to offer. I started going through in a list, either for the podcast or in my personal life, what John Hughes movies I've seen. Mr. Mom, Vacation, Euro Vacation, Christmas Vacation, 16 Candles, Breakfast Club, Weird Science, Pretty in Pink, Ferris Bueller, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, The Great Outdoors, Uncle Buck, we've done all of those on our pod, Home Alone 1, 2, and 3, Dutch, which is a personal favorite, Beethoven, Dennis the Menace, and Curly Sue. That one was my mom's pick. But somehow, Some Kind of Wonderful, it went completely unnoticed. Like, I didn't know about this movie. And that's a crime, because so many of the themes in this movie appeal to me. Chick drummer, poor kid pining over popular girl, punk rock pals. And Simon, I just got to say thank you for this commission and opening my eyes to Some Kind of Wonderful.
I mean, if you ask any kid of the 80s, 90s, not only in the United States, you got here, Simon, that this was worldwide. If you grew up in that time, you were touched, impacted. John Hughes films that either taught you what it was going to be like to hook up or kiss or find somebody you love or maybe one day have sex. It was like the guidebook. You think of John Hughes, he died at 59. Mm-hmm. I'm closing in on that age where he was like the voice of my generation, and that he went so soon. But, you know, in the podcast, I'm going to talk about something that Simon mentioned, to where this wasn't one of his successful films. And I think we always, in our minds, or at least I do it, I think of John Hughes films as one type of movie. Mm-hmm. But when you lay out his filmography, you see a clear growth as he transitioned in life. And I think they touched us at every point. So this film, it was weird. It's coming off of the high school juvenile comedy that we were getting used to, where it was the Weird Science, the Vacation. And then all of a sudden you have it's more of a grounded love story. So I did not see it.
And all too often, Big D, when we talk about like a John Hughes movie, a Steven Spielberg movie, normally we're talking about that person directed the movie, or later in their careers, like they produced the movie, right? They weren't even the director. John Hughes wrote this stuff. And that's a big, big stretch for a person to write that diverse and really enduring library of work. I mean, we're talking decades. And this movie is a great example of how he can twist that story in ways that I did not expect.
Yeah, and I think this is the first time he was speaking to a different group of the audience. As I was watching it, I was like, who was this aimed at? And I think by the end, you saw it was an underserved group of adolescents. And I think it was great that he was trying to mix up the formula and branch out, even if it didn't do as well at the box office.
Yeah, this one goes out to the mechanic painters. Let's hit the trailer.
Mechanic, the female loners going after their loner friend who just happens to be super hot and muscular and then just like swimsuit good looks and abs. It's a tough life.
Flat tops, skinheads, you're all invited. Let's hit the trailer.
I'm going out with a girl tonight, and she's beautiful, and everybody's in love with her, and she's going out with me.
Best friends with tomboy drummer Watts, while Keith's father, Cliff, is obsessed with sending him to business school. Keith is enamored with Amanda Jones, one of the most popular girls in school, but she is dating Hardy Jens, an older guy from a wealthy neighborhood. Amanda herself is not wealthy, but she's accepted by the school's elite clique. Hardy treats Amanda as his property while also fooling around with another girl.
So as I just mentioned, I came into this expecting, I've seen pieces of it, but never sat down probably in the last 30 years. So I don't know where it's going. I don't know other than it's going to kind of be an ugly duckling who's going to, oh, wow, look what a diamond in the rough we have. And I'm surprised right off the bat. Some kind of wonderful. It's not all about virginity. It's not all about getting laid and having sex. And most of the 80s movies that we've done, not just John Hughes, they're pretty racy. They're pretty juvenile. If you think about 16 Candles, you've got showing panties in the bathroom. Michael Anthony Hall gets her drunk in the Rolls Royce and has sex with her. You've got Weird Science with a sex robot. All of it is about losing your virginity. That's always the big idea. It's for laughs and drama. It's everybody trying to they make Kelly LeBrock walk around those little underwear with their tits hanging out. This was very different. It was like romantic. It was shockingly innocent. Gene, we have a shower scene in this. No one is staring at the girls. There's no girls topless. There's no frolicking. There's no period blood being rubbed all over people. It's not sexual. There's no exploratory, whimsical music in the background. You just have a guy talking to his girlfriend, says, listen, I've seen it all before. This isn't anything big. And, Keith, his only desire is to get with Amanda, like her, maybe get a kiss. And it's strangely wholesome and honest.
This may sound unexpectedly Pollyanna of me, but this was way more in line with my high school experience than most of the movies we watched and the movies that you listed off, right? I couldn't relate to a lot of those movies because getting laid was not top of my list. Seeing panties was not top of my list. I was super excited about having a girl like me, notice me, hanging out together, right? That scene when they're kind of laying down next to each other and that is something that I was excited about doing. Learning how to kiss. That was exciting to me. And some might dismiss Keith, the main character, as too good a dude, right? Because he's not trying to get laid all the time. He's not. He even says who says anything about sex? That's not what I'm going for at all. But there are good dudes in the world, and that character's kind of underserved, honestly. I think more good dudes exist than we see in film who they just want to make art and be in love.
You're saying, oh, he's not interested in it. I don't know that I buy it completely, that any teenage boy is not that aware of what's going on or even concerned about it. It doesn't need to be Porky's where he's got naked girls on the wall or jerking off or measuring his dick, but he is too, just too oblivious to everything.
It's like marriage, right? Okay. In movies, it's going to end in somebody getting married. That's where the romance has got to end, right? And they spend so much time propelling us headlong toward that thing or sex, whatever it is, and not talking about sometimes the movie can end with an incremental step, right? Just the simple thing. Let's get to step one first. You can tell a whole story just about that. And when I learned on the Back to the Future episode, right, that Eric Stoltz was cast as original Marty McFly, I couldn't believe it. Because in my head, all I'd seen was Lieutenant Dan. Right. So I'm wait, that's Eric Stoltz, right?
No, that's not. That's Gary Sinise.
Gary Sinise. No.
What are you
There we go again.
No, it's actually, I think it is Lou Diamond Phillips.
No, oh, that's right. No, it's actually, what was the other guy name?
Benjamin Pratt.
No. Benjamin
Yes.
Pratt. No, sorry. Eric Stoltz was in,
he was in Pulp Fiction. He was in Mask.
That's right. He was the guy. Well, I'm going to go with it because.
How did you get Lieutenant Dan?
Because they look alike. Okay. So. Okay, well, no, the story still stands true. In my head, I was picturing Lieutenant Dan as a nervous high schooler on a hoverboard. And that's because I had never seen a 25-year-old Eric Stoltz. Other than in Mask. I have seen Mask, and I do remember that, but that was kind of hard to tell because, Mask. Anyway, now I get it. right? He's got terrific hair, beautiful eyes. He's got that same nervous charm that we get from Michael J. Fox, but he's a little more hunky. He's a little more deep, right? He's a little more intense. And I think which is not to say that Michael J. Fox isn't great. Like, Eric Stoltz is perfect for this role in a way that Michael J. Fox couldn't be. And Michael J. Fox was perfect for Back to the Future in a way that I think Eric Stoltz couldn't be.
No, Eric Stoltz should not have been cast in this film. If I was watching this as the nerdy loner in high school who couldn't get a girl or pined after the popular girl, I would look at him and be like, you motherfucker, why are you stealing our girls? You're good enough to get a girl on your own. Don't play the oh, poor me. I can't get. He looks like a Calvin Klein model. You can't have him in Back to the Future in Hill Valley being like, oh, I'm that reject who's just like down on his luck. No, everything's going his way.
Okay, but everybody's scaled up in this because Mary Stuart Masterson is like just, the tomboy that nobody noticed. Come on, she's beautiful.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, she's got her hair cut short. Wow. I can't even see. Please, Eric Stoltz, if he went to a new school, how long before he's in the popular crew? 35 minutes? 40 minutes? Nobody's going to be like, hey, I don't like that new hot guy who's athletic and he's mechanically inclined. Get him out of here. He's too weird.
Well, I think what turns the ladies off is that he paints them, you know. Nobody likes that.
Without them knowing in excruciating detail, like he's been watching them from afar.
Well, Watts is dismissive of Keith's crush, saying that he and Amanda are too different. Seeing Amanda get detention, Keith gets himself in trouble to spend time with her. But she talks her way out of it, and Keith is stuck with the school criminals, eventually making friends with troublemaker Duncan. When Amanda breaks up with Hardy, Keith asks her out, and mainly to spite Hardy, Amanda accepts. Seeing them together makes Watts realize that she loves Keith as more than just a friend. She pretends to like another boy to try to make Keith jealous.
So Keith, handsome, great body, cool job. Yeah, he doesn't come from a wealthy family, but there's nothing that's holding him back. So let's observe him. They've been in school together for all these years. He's been pining from afar. In the 80s, this probably played very differently. Today, as a 50-plus-year-old man, his actions and his behavior, they could easily be seen as dark and menacing. He's always watching from afar, Gene. He does that detailed painting at the end. She never sat for him. There was never a session. He didn't have a digital camera. This is all from memory. So whenever there's like a shot of her, she's arguing with her boyfriend, always in the background. You see the shadow coming. Oh, it's Keith. He's constantly sketching in his book. He's looking intense. He never really talks to her. He's just quiet and watching and doodling. You know, he's just spending time staring. He's waiting. The boyfriend pulls in. Yes, the boyfriend's an asshole. He's got the Corvette. He sabotages his car. Back in the 80s, this is romance. Today, there's a restraining order coming. He is getting kicked out of school. He sets off the fire alarm and gets caught because he just wants to be with her. I want to sit next to her in detention. I want to be there. Sure, he's a sensitive artist, but she's the out of touch wealthy girl that he's trying to get with, but it's bordering on obsessive. If you put some kind of creepy background music and then at the end we reveal that the sketches in the book are horrifying, you could twist this into it's not just love, it's more a weird obsession.
Yeah, if you fanfic and change the music and add different parts to the film, I guess. I'm willing to admit that Keith is like a little stalkerish, yeah, but it's meant to drive home the point that he's an outcast, right? Like he says at point blank to his dad, and you can't earn that unless you show him being an outcast, right? So he has to act a little weird, but also, we have to respect the fact that, I mean, Keith is sitting outside an impermeable social bubble, right? He has no chance to talk to this girl, and he's obsessed with her. He's determined to talk with her. I respect the hustle. He's finding any way in.
But why is he an outcast?
Because he acts like that.
That's exactly it. He is throwing off all warning signs. He's an outcast because he is creepy and acting like an outcast.
Just because you act weird doesn't make it nefarious.
But it makes you weird.
Yeah, he's weird. Nobody's denying that.
I don't know if it's weird in a good way.
Like demonic drawings and scary music.
No, I was fine. Let's take away like fanfic. But if you were a parent and said, hey, I got a date with Keith. Oh, tell me about Keith. Well, he normally stands there in the hall and stares at me.
you're the guy that would storm Edward Scissorhands' house and like dissect and vivisect E.T. That's who you are.
Yes, I think I said that once.
Well, speaking about how hot Keith is, though, one 80s movie and music trope I'll never understand is like the working class Joe's blue collar and a mechanic. No woman will ever like me. And Big D, I wasn't an adult in the 80s, but like, I don't know if this is real because we see Keith in this movie. You mentioned spying on Amanda outside her house. And he looks down at his grease-stained hands as if to say, "Oh, I'll never get her because mechanic." Like, what? Like, any woman I know, other than my mom, finds mechanics very sexy. Like, he's a dude who's good with his hands. He can fix stuff. Who doesn't love that?
Seriously, women like guys in uniform, even if it's a mechanic. You said it. He's good with your hands. He's rugged. It's like a lumberjack. I've never actually hung out with a lumberjack, but I bet they'd be good lovers. They're rugged. They live out. So I just picture it. You don't think lumberjacks would be great in bed?
I'm just picturing all the guys from Fire in the Sky.
Those
are lumberjacks.
Maybe Canadian lumberjacks.
Okay,
I'm thinking more Canadian, like flannel-wearing lumberjacks and less, pickup driving. But yes, he's charismatic. He's confident. Oh, his dad's blue collar, but he is funny. He's witty. He strikes up conversations easily. And they're portraying him as like this outsider. He's a wallflower. I don't see this kid blending into the background of any school, even if it's working class. And normally in these films where you have the outcast, you get a glow up. It could be a girl who pulls her hair back or they take the glasses off. There is no Clark Kent glow up. There is no Keith. They take him out of the dirty overalls and they get him like a makeover. There's no makeover. There's nothing. He's confident. Keith in the beginning of the movie is the same in the middle, in the end. He grows to maybe have people respect him more. But man, this kid did not need any polishing. He just maybe needed the chance of Amanda to have trouble with her boyfriend.
Also, Simon and the rest of you in the UK, in the United States, we have this industry called timber, and we produce a thing called lumber. We have this natural resource because we still have forests. So we do things like the paper that you have in the UK, it's generally from us. So that's what a lumberjack is a person who produces lumber for the timber industry.
Is this resource shaming? Are you officially shaming him for his little rock island?
Sorry. We were their colony, okay? Like, we fought a war over this. It's our lumber.
It's our lumber.
You buy it. We'll take your music. Thanks. Well, Keith's popularity around school begins to increase once word spreads of his upcoming date with Amanda, whereas Amanda's popularity quickly declines. Hardy plots trouble for Keith by inviting him and Amanda to a party after their date, where Hardy plans to have Keith beaten up. Through his sister Laura, Keith finds out about the scheme and believes Amanda is a part of it. He decides to go to the party anyway to face Hardy.
So besides the fact that we have a handsome male outsider, John Hughes subverts my expectation again. You have Mary Stuart Masterson. She's playing Watts. It's a twist on the best friend or the friend zone trope from the 80s movies. And John Hughes, normally you have the nerdy guy, the Michael Anthony Hall, the skinny kid who's awkward, who doesn't really have a chance and can't get the unattainably popular girl like Pretty in Pink. Some Kind of Wonderful. They flipped that. We get, and again, granted, the least attractive thing about her, she wears boys' underwear and her hair is short, but she's still kick-ass. She's punk rock girl. She's fun. She's cool. She's down for anything. She's sarcastic. She's tough. She's independent, but it's very different from the traditional relationship where the outcast boy and the gender flip. It gives a different dynamic to Watts. And it stands out from the other flat, like one-note characters of the two guys, and I can't even come up with them now, in Weird Science. It was... I
don't remember Chet.
No, Chet was the brother.
I know, it's the only one I remember in the movie.
But from the one-note characters in Weird Science or 16 Candles, and it gives the character of Watts a depth, and it made me, Gene, hurt so far inside because I had a version of this really cool friend zone girl who I knew was like Watts was into me, and I don't want to say I strung her along. Maybe I did. I knew she liked me. She took me on some wonderful, amazing, expensive dates that may have been inspired by this movie in some way. Like she would take me into like New York, and we saw Sting and Tori Amos opened. And then one day we drove into Manhattan and she had Dave Letterman tickets. She bought me expensive gifts. I was always there for her, never completely emotionally available. But I realized that as much as Watts was this, I think I was terrible to her. And I feel guilty.
Do you and Vanessa have conversations in the shower?
No.
No. So this is a thing that's kind of developed with marriage. So Sarah and I, we talk the entire time we're showering. And I told her about this Karen situation with you. And all she said was, yeah, I could see that. I did not expect that.
That was nice.
Well, no, that she could see that about you, that you would string this woman along and accept all the gifts and stuff.
Well, it started like this because she was my manager at Blockbuster.
Oh.
So we used to get the printouts of the video games, and as a lark, we would cut out the words and make new names. So I had Superman as my name tag for a little bit. And I was talking one day about how one of the other girls had come in and given flowers to me. And she goes, I don't see why anybody would give you flowers. I said, listen, you're going to get me flowers one day, very confidently. About a week later, flowers come in. They're all dead with a handwritten note that said, Superman, buy your own damn flowers. This is Watts. And that made me interested in her. And I enjoyed her company. There was just a couple problems with her physically that didn't make us compatible. But I feel bad because I mentioned it to you. Like
Yeah, no, I get it. It's just funny. I've never thought. I wish I had a time machine so I can go back and use that phrase every time. There were just some problems with her physically that made us not compatible.
And I think it was because she was an adult and she got braces late. And I don't know that there weren't water picks at this point. So she had really bad breath, but she was so sweet.
This is Big D's idea of a formal apology, by the way.
I hope she's not listening. Dude, she'd be a great host, by the way. She knows more about movies than I did. Her sister worked in the industry. She's the one who told me about that Sarah Jessica Parker's a bitch.
Yeah, and I wouldn't have to smell her from here, so it'd be great.
I hope now. No, she's got to know by now. We've advanced farther in our dental hygiene.
Oh, for sure. At least the Americans have.
Oh, wow.
Did you notice?
Now you're dental shaming.
Did you notice how much Watts look like Amanda, but like with different hair and clothes?
Other than they're both Caucasian women in their 20s?
Look at the two of them side by side. I think you'd be surprised. I only thought of this because much like I thought Eric Stoltz was in Forrest Gump, I thought Mary Stuart Masterson was in Back to the Future. And it's not Mary Stuart Masterson.
No. It's the other one. Leah.
What's her name?
Leah Thompson.
It's Leah Thompson. So then I thought, wait a minute, they do look a lot alike. And so then I pulled up, there's a couple of these like promo photos for Some Kind of Wonderful.
The poster.
Where they're next to him. No, there's one where like one of them is like vertically flipped. Like, so that it's like looks like they're having like a weird threesome. And the two women look a lot alike. I think, and I think that was intentional. And because I spent the whole movie thinking Mary Stuart Masterson was Amanda and Leah Thompson was playing Watts, I'm just glad you liked her performance because I was worried that you would call Watts out for doing that New York accent thing from just one of the guys. Would they kind of talk like this when they're trying to sound tough?
She's a
no, it didn't bother you here.
No, because she's not pretending to be a guy. This is just her tomboy act where she's trying to portray that she's tough. It's her hard outer shell. She's not available emotionally or physically, and she's all about her. She loves three things, Gene.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, her drums, Keith, and herself.
Yeah,
right. Nothing else. She got no time for anything else.
Right.
So no, it didn't bother me.
So the two awful people we've really identified on this podcast is Keith and you. I want to talk about Keith. So we've talked about how Keith, isn't noticing that Watts loves him. He's not reciprocating that. And that's one issue, okay? But there's a totally different issue. Just on the basis of being friends, okay? Keith, he's an asshole friend. He abandons his homie Watts, okay? The entire movie, The only thing we see him do for her is intervene when Duncan like sexually harasses her toward the beginning of the movie. And I think any of us would do that. If you or I were walking behind a complete stranger, some guy stuck his leg out and then tried to grab a woman, you would step in. Meanwhile, Watts, she's giving Keith rides. She's hanging out with him at the garage while he's at work, giving him all kinds of advice. And what does he do to pay her back? He ghosts her because he's chasing Amanda. And then he just shows up to borrow her car so he can give Amanda a ride, right? And then the car doesn't start because it's out of gas. And then does he tell Amanda, hey, sorry, I was going to give you a ride home, but my best friend who loaned me her car is out of gas and needs my help? Like, does he tell her that? No. He's like, okay. He gets in the Jeep with Amanda and leaves the keys in Watts' car. And then what do? They just give him a ride straight home. Like, he's not even going anywhere. He's just going home.
Fuck yes. He borrowed her car, used her for her car to go after a girl, then left the car behind, besmirched her name and her car. and now Keith is much worse than I was with Karen. Much worse. And it boils down to one of two options, Gene. Either he just does not care about her, or he is blissfully unaware, which I find hard to believe. Yeah. They portray him as aloof, that he's not paying attention, he's a bit naive. But please, Gene, as you were once a young, horny boy, Keith.
Still am.
Keith is aloof. He's laying in bed with Watts after practicing kissing.
Yeah.
You could feel that chemistry. She's in bed with him and her breath, she's heaving. You can hear her getting aroused. There's no way he could not have seen this.
The only possible explanation for this is that he's feeling it, but he thinks that she's got such a tough exterior or whatever that he's buying into this idea that there's no way in hell that she would be interested in him. But yeah, I agree with you. I mean, she's giving every goddamn signal. Like she's at no point does he go, "Are you jealous?"
And that's the point. Yeah. That's the point, Gene. A friend will ask. A friend will inquire. You know what's going on when something's wrong. Not once does he ask, and it even comes up at the end. One of the last lines in the film is she says, "You never asked." He has every opportunity to do it, but he strategically avoids asking her the question that would make her feelings come out into the open.
So one explanation people might have is that Keith thinks that Watts is a lesbian. But I feel like the interaction with Duncan at the beginning kind of wipes that possibility out. You think that's the thing?
No, because there's never any kind of hinting of that. You never see her in the club with other women. You never hear her. She doesn't say, "Oh yeah, Amanda's beautiful." She never shows any attraction to other women.
She's with that other boy, the flathead kid.
Right. And he makes comments about it, joking. She says, "No, I'm just not into you." Yeah. So Keith cannot be oblivious. That is a twisted manipulation that goes beyond me and Karen to make her like practice. "Oh, you want to practice kissing? Okay." And then you see her stagger out of the room. She's having trouble walking after that encounter. And then later on, to make her watch you and to have her play a part in you finding a love as she's self-loathing. What do you like about her? She's pretty. And he keeps just slowly twisting the knife, Gene. It's like in Saving Private Ryan when the German is on top. Shh, shh. That is Keith with the dagger into Watts' heart. Shh, shh. And slowly she's struggling and dying inside.
To all the World War II veterans out there listening, this is my formal apology on behalf of Big D. He's on the warpath tonight. While Amanda's wealthy and popular clique starts to shun her for leaving Hardy, Keith attempts to plan the perfect date to prove he is worthy of Amanda. Watts tells him that Amanda will appreciate a good kisser, so she kisses Keith under the guise of teaching him how to make out. When Cliff discovers Keith has spent his entire college fund on earrings for Amanda, he is livid, but Keith convinces his father to respect his right to make his own decisions. On the night of the date, Keith picks up Amanda with Watts serving as their chauffeur in a rented car. They go to an expensive restaurant for dinner and argue. Then Keith takes Amanda to an art museum and shows her a painting he did of her. He gives her the earrings and they kiss while Watts watches from a distance.
So, Gene, here at Shat the Movies, our boilerplate, our mission statement is we're going to go back and revisit the films of our youth and see did they hold up these years later. But the other half of that is how we will look at films that we watched as kids about kids, now watching as adults. And we shift, or at least I do, I shift to watching the adults in the film and see how my impression of the characters and the plot change. We're going to talk about Keith's father here. As a kid, I cared about Keith. Here, I'm thinking about his father and his desire. You find out that your son has emptied the college fund. The dad's furious. He is a mix of desperate. He's sad. He's emotionally wrecked. This is not a traditional John Hughes character or situation. His father, he sees that he's wasted his opportunity to better life. And it comes from someone who's worked hard. He says, you know what, you're going to be the first one to go to college. I don't want you to have to come home and wash your hands each day. And Keith is the typical dumb teen who I bet at the time I was with him. Dad, money's not important. Yes, it's fucking important, Keith. And his dad tells him, you're not aware of it as a kid. And I felt for the dad. I felt for his plight. You're trying to stop your kid from wasting his potential. He's going to blow his future on a fucking caviar date and diamond earrings. It is a classic teenager believing they know more than their parents. And it's you just want to strangle your kids and make them aware of the sacrifices and struggles of being an adult, and that the real world will come quick.
To be fair, college tuition for like a year in 1987 was like $1,500.
Yes.
So
he could have gone for 4 years on those rings, those diamond earrings.
Probably. But can we talk about how good that scene was? Like, again, talking about how this movie stands out from the rest of John Hughes' work. I never had a dad, but this is such a healthy dynamic. This is what I would hope a father-son relationship would be like, right? Dad has a right to be pissed, and he's allowed to do that in this film, and nobody's going to gasp and clutch their pearls and go, oh my God, he dropped an F-bomb, or he's abusive to this kid, right? There's nothing wrong with him yelling at Keith. Keith fucking deserves to get yelled at, but Dad also is willing to listen, and he fucking lays into Keith, and he said, hey, I've said my piece. And Keith lays out his case, and he effectively explains, I think, why this is bigger than just college. Like, I was convinced. He's absolutely right. Your identity, this is one thing that I've learned in my 20 years in the professional world, right? Post-college. Your identity is so much more important than your education. Like, knowing who you are, not walking around with your tail tucked between your legs, having some pride, standing up to people, not thinking of yourself as less, not having imposter syndrome, all that shit is so fucking important to your success. I've seen countless kids come out of college with stellar resumes, and they fucking flop in the workforce because they don't know who the fuck they are.
And I mean, his character, it's one of the things John Hughes did very well. The father figure, he often made them not one note. We think back to like 16 Candles.
Yeah.
There's the moment where you have Samantha, she's down. It's the day before her sister's wedding, and she's sleeping on the couch, and the father comes in and really poignant conversation with her about Jake and about the relationship and finding love. And it's something that Hughes did very well, was making that dad a genuine character. He's not one note. He's got, in this, it is that balance. You said he doesn't get angry. He has every right to. In the end, he understands him, but he's there in touch. The fathers in John Hughes films are usually aware of what's going on. He asks him, are you okay? He's active in school, trying to figure out. He sits and multiple times tries to connect. And he's also got that goofy dad side. And Gene, I hope one day that there are little Gene Lyons running around or little Sarah Lyons running around, because one of the best parts about being a dad is the goofy dad shit that Keith's father does so perfectly well. And I don't know why. I can't explain why being the embarrassing dad or the dad jokes is so fun. I love embarrassing Emma. And maybe it's because I know that as a kid, you care so much about perception. It's like you want to be dropped off around the school, but it is so much fun, Gene.
No, I mean, I think I'm doing all the precursors to that already. The baseball caps have started going on. The mustache grew out. There's a seriousness that is fading from me in life. And I think that comes with wisdom too. Mm-hmm. But it's like, I am too old and too tired to be cool. I don't give a shit. Like, I just want to have fun. And I think that, I never used to be able to connect with children. I don't really understand them now, but they're very amused by me, and I'll settle for that.
I do this shit to Em all the time, like dad jokes. I'm like, So Emma, how many times do you have to tickle an octopus to get him to laugh? Gene, how many times do you have to tickle an octopus?
8.
10 tickles.
That's good.
Emma looks at me and she goes, "That's not funny." Gene, did you hear about that movie Constipation?
Is it about to come out?
No, it never came out. And Emma's like, it's so fun. I don't know why it is. And Cliff, he walks into school. He's seen the guidance counselor and he's walking down the hall and he looks through and he sees the daughter Laura. She's having a moment and he knocks on it and she screams mortified. It is so fun. Being a dad is great. It's almost like carte blanche. Like you can embarrass yourself and people just say, it's a dad. You can do whatever. I hope one day you get to experience it because it's a lot of fun. And I think John Hughes does a good job of balancing that. You could have the dad in one scene screaming at him in desperation and heartbreak because he knows he's throwing away his life. But at the same time, balancing that out with love, understanding, compassion, and sensitivity. It's a hard thing to balance. And John Hughes' dads usually do it.
Big D, earlier in the podcast, you completely showed your ass with the Karen thing. I think it's my turn to be a little bit vulnerable. I got legit upset during Keith and Amanda's date because I've been there a few times. I don't know if you've experienced this, where you spend a lot of money, you like plan things out, you want something to be special for a person, but there's a conversation that goes sideways. And then you got to make this very important decision, right? Do you stay and like try to make the best of it, or do you bail? And there are times, like let's say you're traveling in Europe or something, or let's say that you've spent money on, I don't know, a cruise, right? Where you can't just leave. Like you're basically stuck there and you have no choice but to go through with it. But there are other times where it's like less like that, right? Like a family party, right? You've already gone there. Do you leave before things get worse, or do you try to kind of work your way through it? And recently, Sarah and I, we were out clubbing for the first time in forever because she's had an injury. And so we finally got to go out dancing.
You can't say because she's had an injury. You got to be a little specific. It makes it sound like something horrifying. She got hit by a ricochet, like when you got shot by those gangs in your youth.
She had surgery on her foot.
Oh, okay. That's much better.
I guess it's not an injury then. She had I didn't want to say a procedure. That sounds much worse.
Did Sarah get into a car accident? What happened to her?
No, but she had sutures in her foot, and so she, couldn't go out clubbing for a while. So we go out. It's just around Halloween time, goth club. She looks amazing. All of our favorite songs are on, and we had some drinks, and the night was just delicious. It was just perfect. And we're having a good time. We're smiling. We're laughing. And then she points to one of the guys on the dance floor, and she goes, "Oh, he's missing his date that he was with." And I see the woman across the dance floor, and I point to her, and I said, "Oh, she's right over there," where the woman was with another guy. And that the guy that she was with was the guy she'd originally showed up with. And Sarah responded with, "Oh, you're right, and I'm wrong." And this is, by the way, like Depeche Mode is like blasting, so you can't really like hear that well. She says, "You're right, I'm wrong." And I thought, oh no, she thought I corrected her. She thought, and she's telling me that she's wrong. I don't want her to feel bad. We're having a good time. So I responded with, "Oh no, I wasn't trying to be right. I just thought you were looking for that woman, and I saw her over there." And I pointed to the woman again, and Sarah repeated, "Yeah, you're right, I'm wrong." To which I repeated, "Hey, I wasn't trying to be right. I just wanted you to know where she went." Anyway, this shit went on in a circle for a while until I decided I don't want to be the couple on the dance floor that's like yelling about being right versus trying to not be right or whatever the fuck. And so I called it. I was like, "We're going home. You're drunk," which was stupid. Okay. Because we were having a good time. The night wasn't over yet. There were still hours to be dancing. And instead, you have this silent car ride home where everything is fucking tense for the rest of the weekend, as opposed to you can just say, "Hey, okay, I love you. Keep dancing."
Oh my God. You're a rookie. So many wrong moves. So many wrong moves. First of all,
tell me, Big Daddy. Okay.
So you're in a loud environment trying to have a nuanced conversation. How the fuck is that?
No, specifically, I was trying to not have her sit with the idea that I was correcting her for the rest of the night. I wanted her to be like, "Oh, cool. Okay. You weren't trying to correct me. Let's keep dancing."
Right. Instead, you were trying to correct what she had said, her answer. So you were correcting her, but only in subsequent like rounds of this debate.
Out of care.
Yeah, I'm sure she could hear that in your tone as Depeche Mode was playing, like what, Black Celebration or Never Let Me Down Again? What was playing?
I think it was. Yeah.
Okay. No, Gene, you gotta realize the environment. And not that I'm an expert at it, because I had a moment like this today. Vanessa and I, there was a topic which was a little tender where I was a little upset. She kept asking what I was upset about.
Was it foot surgery?
No, we were at Sam's and it came out and she said, well, I'll just come back to Sam's tomorrow. And I said, fine, let's go. I just walked out into the car. I said, you come back tomorrow alone and do it. I got in the car, and what did I do? That little voice of the 50-year-old on my shoulder said, don't hash it out. Stop right here. You can de-escalate. So it took a step back, and I tried to think about, instead of what am I upset about, I try to find the little moments or acts of love that showed me she cares, find middle ground, de-escalate, and rolled it back. 5 minutes of conversation. We circled the parking lot, got back in, and did the shopping because it's Emma's 9th birthday this weekend.
Oh, congratulations.
So we came back and did that. But you have to make a conscious effort. De-escalate. Gene, was it worth the argument and the fight of you having her know you didn't want to correct her while you were correcting her about not correcting her?
No, and that's the thing is, I am, and this is going to sound like, I never do anything wrong or anything, but I am a de-escalator in our relationship 100%. Like, I'm like, hey, she is more important to me than being right? Like, and so it was, so it was more of the, in my sense, at least, it was like the ridiculousness of the situation. I just wanted out of that situation. But you're absolutely right. I think the bigger thing is like, when I was an RA in college, they taught us that if somebody's really drunk, don't argue with them at that time. You will have that conversation. I'm not saying Sarah was super drunk, but just saying but you have that conversation the next day, right? Right now, all we got to do is get you to bed. Like, I know you're having a good time. You're being loud. That's fine. Let's just get you to bed. And and then tomorrow you go talk about what you don't do is be like, hey, you're super drunk. I'm not drunk. No, you're drunk. I know you are, blah, blah. It's not worth it, right? Just be their friend right then. Take them to task tomorrow.
So my friendly observation, you were the one who needed to go to bed, not her. And she was probably happy that you got out of there because she probably would have hated you by the end of the night. So you going home was a good thing. But de-escalate. You could have, what would have worked, Gene, probably? Just say, you're right, and give her a hug.
Yeah.
Try that. You can't lose.
I mean, that seems to be the unanimous consensus about everybody who hears this story. They go, yeah, dummy.
Worst case, what could she have said? Fuck you. And you say, I love you too. That's it.
Yeah. And she'll just stare at me.
And then you both could sway there.
Wednesday fucking Addams.
You could just sway to the music. And it'll all be good.
You gonna sing again?
No, I don't. Maybe.
Finally, Keith and Amanda go to Hardy's party. Keith is about to get beaten up by Hardy's friends when Duncan and his school buddies arrive to help. Hardy tries to talk his way out of the predicament, exposing himself as a coward in front of the party guests. Amused, Keith tells Hardy he is over, after which Amanda slaps Hardy twice. After they leave the party, Watts apologizes to Amanda. Watts then leaves and starts to walk home in tears. Amanda gives the earrings back to Keith and urges him to go after Watts. Keith catches up to Watts and they kiss. So Simon mentioned the skinhead in this film, Duncan, and I was so excited that finally, we got an 80s skinhead who's a good guy. Not completely good. I mean, he sexually harasses women, he crashes parties, but Duncan, who's played by Elias Koteas, he was fucking Casey Jones from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. He's a riot in this movie. He reminds me so much of my hardcore high school heroes like Henry Rollins and Ian McKay. And he also sort of serves as like a dark mirror of Keith. He's so much fun on screen. He does this little underbite thing, that tough guy persona. I literally cheered, and I don't do that often while watching movies. I cheered when Duncan and the detention crew showed up to put Party on Ice. I was like, fuck yeah. Like, the crew is here.
Yeah, I mean, this is another common thread. You think of Weird Science. It's the nerds befriending the other true outcasts who happen to be physically imposing. Most of these kids in detention were local football players in high school that they picked because they were like bigger. Like the one kid, like with I think he had like a cleft lip, and some of the other kids, they were just bigger kids who they cast because they were like imposing. But the learning that he does in this group and the camaraderie of these true misfits, these kids who are the actual black sheeps of school, It's great. It's a common theme that Hughes does. And it allows him to set up this kick-ass date where you get ultimate cool points, Gene.
Yeah.
If you have these friends, if you went out on a date with any girl and you had some crazy skinhead, some other badass kids who are there, and you are the nerdy artist, and you're like, hey, they're my friends, and they're getting you into a closed museum or an amphitheater, it's a brilliant move. You've got ultimate cool points. You're doing shit that money can't buy, and it's the date. It starts off rough, but it is going to a place because of his friends he's made and the diverse group of just cool people, good, cool, weird people.
And it was cool to see that attempt at a romance between Keith and Amanda turned out to be an alliance sort of in the end. And I'm glad that Keith followed his heart and went after Watts. That's the way the movie should end. But I found myself asking, like, what is Amanda going to do now? Like, she's still middle class. She just lost her boyfriend and her date for the night. She can't sit at the cool kids table anymore. She's not going on trips with all the elite kids. She's standing there in the middle of the night outside her ex house while Keith's friends hijack the party. There is going to be blowback from all of this. You know, there's going to be revenge, and she's probably going to be the one that suffers the most. And I'm not saying I need a happy ending for Amanda, right? Like, it doesn't all need to be rosy. It's not going to be like the end of Just One of the Guys where like a biker rides by and picks her up, right? I just thought they could at least show her, like, I don't know, there's a rental car sitting right there. Maybe take that and drive off into the night with a grin because you're free from all this bullshit. Something.
But I mean, what are her chances? She's same part of town as Keith. She probably doesn't have the money to go to college.
No.
She's now already been kicked out of the cool group. She's got no friends. She's alone. Most of her experiences and everything that she's done in high school is based upon her boyfriend, his wealth, the cool kids. She is going to be devastated, and I think she's in for a real hard time. But Keith is the one I want to focus on here. Why is he this relatable underdog? He is a manipulative figure. What he did to Watts, what he did even to Amanda, taking her on a date while he thought it was all a setup. And it was just ooh, I gotcha. Yeah, you want to laugh at me? You're going to take me to the party and I'm going to get my ass kicked. And what caused this change of heart? There was no moment where we didn't see anything where he looked over at Watts and saw her walking away, and then some flashbacks in his head about interactions they've had. It seemed convenient to me. Amanda, yeah, whatever. They really didn't match. And all of a sudden, there's Watts there. It seemed convenient. There was no genuine love that he came to through revelations in the movie. It just seemed like, fuck. I was proving a point. I was going to show the cool kids I was worth paying attention to. And now, okay, yep, she's over there. I'll go walk over. And she says, hey, you never asked me before. Well, I wasn't as desperate as I am now, I guess.
I agree with you on that second point, but on the first point about what was the point of all that and was he trying to manipulate her and stuff, I think that it was a test for himself, right? To see if he could be so great a person, so impressive a person, right? That a person like her could actually fall for him, right? And I think he accomplished that. And they accuse of each other of using each other, and they acknowledge it, right? So that was his whole goal, which was, I think that's a bit of sophisticated thinking, right? It's a little bit above and beyond what we normally get from this type of film, where it's like, all I need to know is that on that night, I was good enough for Amanda, right? And then I can go on living my life. I just need to know, to prove to myself that I was good enough and to prove to them that I was good enough.
Do you really need to prove it to other people? Couldn't he have proved it to himself without blowing his... He got her. She was at the date. That was it. You proved your point. Hey, I got you here.
No, the date he thought was a setup until later in the amphitheater. That's when he won.
So what did showing up to the party, what did that show? He was going to get his ass kicked.
Yeah, it's to show the rest of them that he wasn't afraid.
Did he call in the backups, or was that just just happenstance?
They just happened to know where the party was.
Maybe they knew, hey, he's in trouble. Maybe Watts probably saved him. Watts probably called him and said, listen,
she probably did.
I'm going to this party where he's going to get his ass kicked. And he was going to take the moral high ground.
Yeah.
Where he's like, take him outside, kick his ass. And then they say, why didn't you punch the boyfriend? I can't do anything to him that's worse than what he's done to himself. High school kids don't care.
Harry Potter?
Yes, high school kids don't give a shit about moral high ground.
Painters do.
At least, oh my God. At least Amanda kicked him in the balls a couple of times and slapped him and whatever. But early on, Simon talked about John Hughes. His filmography changed dramatically from beginning to end. And right around this point with Some Kind of Wonderful, it became even more obvious now going back and doing this review. His early films, the big ones, the ones that started and launched his career, 16 Candles, Breakfast Club, Weird Science, it's juvenile. It's based on the audiences, the young teenage kid looking out to go see boobs, talk about virginity, getting a girlfriend, popular kids, the school cliques. That's what they were at that point. Then he gets to Ferris Bueller's Day Off. It's a little more mature, a little more sophisticated. It's focusing on living life to the fullest. You have Cameron, you have Ferris. It's about making every day worth it. Some Kind of Wonderful comes in. It's another transition point. It's less about the physical connections and more about emotional growth, knowing about your future, the dealings with the father. The movies became more introspective. They're emotional. They're focused on the self-worth of the characters. It's no longer showing panties in the bathroom. It's you developing at the end and realizing something about your life. And then he starts transitioning again. We get to the next group of films, the adult stories, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. It's about loss. It's about humor and loneliness. She's having a baby, the difficulties of teen pregnancy, Uncle Buck, tackling family and adulthood. We think of him as those ha-ha funny comedies, but at the end, and like this, it really had every group as they grew. There was a story for them that was relevant, and he deserves a lot more respect, I think. We talked about Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, how brilliant it is. I think the fact that he could grow in his movies and touch every audience, I have a lot more respect for him after this because I didn't give it its due justice when I watched it whenever it was 30 years ago.
And I think it's important to note that this is a different trajectory than a lot of other writers in the sense that, a lot of them, they'll do the big commercial hit, they'll get the money, and then they'll go into really artsy stuff after that. It all still stayed commercially viable. It was also fairly mainstream, right? But it's just getting a little more grown up, which is really what you love to see. And I'm glad that we got to see this bridge film that makes the rest of them after that sort of make sense, but also really tells you how a guy like John Hughes could go from something like Weird Science to Planes, Trains, right? That's a big leap. And there were a lot of baby steps along the way.
Yeah, and especially as we're coming up on Thanksgiving and the holiday season, Uncle Buck, go see Dutch. Dutch was another one.
Dutch, so good.
We talk about Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Dutch with you're getting adult themes where they're starting to tell the stories and the difficulties of adult relationships and connecting now reverse. It's no longer kids trying to connect with the parents. It's now adults trying to connect with the kids. So whatever stage in life you're on, John Hughes has a story for you. So I'd recommend in the holiday season, go watch Dutch if you haven't.
Well, now it's time in the podcast where we give our Shat score for Some Kind of Wonderful. Shat score is our way of telling you how many wipes this movie takes to get out of your perspective. But 0 wipes is a perfect movie. It's when it's your mother's house and we're all having a party. And 5 wipes is an absolute disaster of a film. It's seeing what your girlfriend looks like without skin. I'll go first, Big D. I liked this movie better than most John Hughes movies. It had heart. It had great parents. It had some lovable characters, mainly Duncan, and it had a few laughs. But you've kind of convinced me during this pod, and I had an inkling of this thought early on, that none of this movie is remotely believable. It's a nice story. It's a nice fantasy, but it's predicated on just a silly notion that 2 best friends since the 3rd grade who are both straight and are accepted only by each other at school. They're literally all they have. Never thought, what if? Just never occurred to them?
Never.
You're telling me a mechanic can't put together his own car in 1987. He's got to go roll around in another beater. It's a fun fantasy of a film, but I don't think that this ranks among elite 80s movies in the Shat pantheon. It's just very good, not superb. I'm going 1 3/4 wipes.
Yeah, I mean, as much as I've said this is a milestone point in his career, for me, I wasn't the audience. This was aimed at, maybe that misfit girl who was pining not over the handsome, like popular kid, but her friend. It was a very niche audience. The movies that spoke to me were more of the nerdy guy who couldn't get the good looking girl. This is a fairly cool girl, but believes she's a misfit, and she sees her friend who would be a perfect fit, but he doesn't see the connection, and she goes above and beyond to the detriment of her emotional well-being to help support him in what he thinks is his dream. It's preposterous. The casting is fun. It's historic, but it doesn't meet the roles or be believable. The relationship with the father is great, but it's average to me. I have to respect it for where it falls in the filmography, but for me, it's not one of his best. I think it's 2.5 wipes. It's average. It's nothing offensive. It's innocent, fun, but to me, I didn't connect to any of it. So 2.5.
All right, with 2.5 wipes from Big D and 1 3/4 wipes from me, that gives us an average wipe score of 2.125 wipes for Some Kind of Wonderful.
So, Gene, that now ties us in the 172 spot, better than I would have thought, with 4 other films: Stripes, Airplane, Hackers, and Bad Boys. I believe this is the Sean Penn Bad Boys.
Yes.
It's not the Will Smith Bad Boys. This is the prison Bad Boys. And then slightly worse than Teen Wolf and Johnny Dangerously. So it's in that range. I mean,
it's about right.
You think it's better than that?
No, I think it's about what it should be.
Yeah.
I felt like we were giving it kind of a harsh score, but now that I see where it shook out, it sounds about right.
God, to show you how twisted I was and how desperate I was for love and attention, and maybe I needed a movie. The she's having a baby. I was so enamored with Molly Ringwald, as hard that is to believe, that I was like, why couldn't I get Molly Ringwald pregnant? Why couldn't we raise a family together? It was very sad. I would have taken like trapping someone, Molly Ringwald, just to get the love of that vixen.
Yeah, that's not stalkerish or creepy at all.
No, so that's maybe why I should have connected with Keith better.
So as Big D mentioned, we are leading into the Thanksgiving season, and I wanted to send a big thanks to all the Shat listeners who helped me out with the Arizona Animal Welfare League Walk to Save Animals. That's an annual event that we do to raise money for a no-kill shelter here in Arizona. And overall, the walk this year was able to raise over $123,000, and Shat listeners were responsible for about $800 of that. So really, really appreciate it. So big shout out to Phil H., Rob F., who says, great cause, great pod. Scott H. for Lila, Aspen, and Odie, our rescue dogs. Adopt, don't shop. Thanks, Scott. From Chris from Minnesota, who said, thanks for everything you do on the pod. Keep it up and keep your good work up. Jeremy B., who says, hi, Gene. Thanks for the great years of podcast and for your review of Deep Rising and upcoming review of William Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet. This is in honor of Fig the St. Bernard, Hugo the Beagle, and Juniper the Labrador, who passed away. This is from Jeremy and Melissa. James M. wrote in and said, go, Gene, go, up the Shat. And finally, Scott B. wrote in and said, thank you for the most entertaining and consistent hour of entertainment I've looked forward to every week for the past 5 years or so. A huge tip of the cap to the entire Shat crew. This is for Teddy the doggy, who we brought home almost 3 years ago, Mr. Pickles, and Bowie, 2 kittens we adopted just over 2 months ago. Quite the menagerie for a small Brooklyn apartment. Keep up the good work. So thank you guys for all of the help. Big D and I, both big animal lovers here at Shat the Movies, and it means so much to us that you join us in our love of animals. All right, Big D, what do we have coming up next week?
Gee, next week, a highly skilled jewel thief, Frank, longs to leave his dangerous trade and settle down with his girlfriend. Eager to make one last big score in order to begin living a legitimate life, Frank reluctantly associates with Leo, a powerful gangster. Unfortunately for Frank, Leo wants to keep him as an employee, resulting in a tense showdown when he finally tries to give up his criminal activities once and for all. Commissioned by Christopher D. And this came out in 1981. Never seen it. I've seen the poster now, and it looks very interesting. It's a common story that we've heard before, so we'll see if this can be a different twist.
I'm a super big James Caan fan, so I'm geeked for this one.
He's a badass, so hopefully that's all I'm hoping for. Badass James Caan.
All right. Well, big thank you to Chris for the upcoming commission. Big thank you to Simon from Blighty for commissioning Some Kind of Wonderful. Thank you to all the commissioners who make this podcast possible. That concludes this week's episode of Shat the Movies. Be sure to follow us on social media, share with a friend. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, and Instagram at Shat the Movies. Email us, host@shatpod.com. Support the podcast by shopping our Amazon affiliate link, buying our merch, or by commissioning your own movie. Find all information by visiting our website, shatpod.com. Also, check out our sister podcast, Shat on TV. Review TV series such as Lovecraft Country, Westworld, True Detective, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, and Watchmen. Find all information on our website, shatpod.com/TV, wherever fine podcasts be found, including Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, and YouTube. Be sure to subscribe. And if you stop by Apple Podcasts, please leave a 5-star review. It helps the podcast grow. On behalf of my co-host, Big D, I'm Gene Lyons. Join us next time for the following movie.
Are you clear?
You've been putting down 2-3 scores a month. You want to put down contract scores all over the country, working directly for me?
I am self-employed. Geisty lice. Just diamonds or cash.
Fine. I'll make you a millionaire in 4 months.
I wear $150 slacks. I wear silk shirts. I wear $800 suits. I wear a gold watch. I wear a perfect D, flawless, 3-carat ring. I'm a thief.
Do you think that I have been waiting for you to come along?
You're gonna marry her and have some kids? Yes.
Hey, I'm talking to you. Hey.
I mean, what is going on in your life that is so terrific? I'm just asking you to be with me. Go.
We got a problem.
I want my money.
We're your new partners. We're in for 10 points.
I am the last guy you want to mess with.
You get paid what I say. You do what I say.
You don't know from one day to the next whether you're going to be killed, go home, or get busted.
What's wrong with you?
James Caan, thief.